Hello, mến chào tất cả quý vị anh chị em đã vào diễn đàn VMI Vlog. Hôm nay là cái poll ngày 2 tháng 8 và lúc 5 giờ 30 chiều California giữa hai ứng cử viên tổng thống và Kamala Harris cũng như là tổng thống Trump. Đây là cái poll hàng ngày và lấy mỗi cái poll và mỗi ngày khác nhau cho quý vị anh chị em theo dõi. Sau đây là cái poll nó tiếng Anh, tuy nhiên có cái phụ đề Việt ngữ ở bên dưới, tuy nhiên nó có luôn cả cái số phiếu cử tri đoàn cho mỗi tiểu bang và nó thắng. Nếu mà ai thắng thì cần với 270 số phiếu cử tri đoàn thì thắng mỗi một người đó ứng cử viên, ai mà được 270 là sẽ thắng.
Averages from all 50 states. A whole ton of new polling has come out between Harris and Trump over the past week, and today we'll be taking a look at where these polls say Trump and Harris stand on the path to 270 electoral votes. Let's start off on the West Coast with the state of Washington, where we have two polls that have been conducted so far between the vice president and the former president. On average, Kamala Harris leads by 14.5 percentage points. Washington generally is a solid blue state, but Harris is on track to perform worse than Joe Biden did in 2020 when he won the state by nearly 20 points. So Washington, it's going to be solid blue, but not as much as it was last time. In Oregon, we have one poll that was released, and this was actually released less than a week ago, conducted by Hoffman Research from the 24th to the 26th of July. So this was conducted after Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race, which occurred on July 21st. And according to the only poll we have from Oregon, Kamala Harris leads by just 5 percentage points compared to Biden's 16-point victory 4 years ago. So the state of Oregon is going to be likely blue. And to finish off the West Coast, we of course have California. 54 electoral votes in play here. This is Kamala Harris's home state. She served as a senator from California from 2017 until 2021. And when looking at the polling here, she is on track to win by just under 20 percentage points. It is still a significantly worse margin than Biden's 30-point margin from 2020, but Kamala Harris is still on track to win, and the state of California will be solid blue on our map. Next up, we have Nevada, a state that Donald Trump was on track to easily flip before Biden dropped out, but even against Harris, Trump is still on track to win. He leads by 4 points, according to the two latest polls from the Silver State, and Kamala Harris has only led in one out of the 4 that have been released throughout the past year. And this new Bloomberg poll conducted with Morning Consult honestly is not the greatest poll. The sample was not great in many other states as well, so I would take this poll with a huge grain of salt, but Trump does lead on average by 4 percentage points. He is definitely the favorite to win a state that Republicans haven't carried since 2004. George W. Bush was the last Republican to win Nevada. Donald Trump lost it by 2.4% in both of the last 2 elections, but in 2024 he is the clear favorite in the betting markets. He has an over 6 in 10 chance at winning the state. Nevada is going to be lean Republican, and it will be the first flip on the map for the former president. We also have Arizona, another state that Democrats won in 2020. Joe Biden carried it by 0.3%. This was a very narrow margin. Joe Biden barely came out on top in a state that Democrats hadn't won since 1996. In 2024, though, Democrats are probably going to lose this very recent flip. Donald Trump leads by 4.2% in the polling, and again, every single poll shows Trump in the lead except for this new Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. Honestly, it is not the greatest poll, so I would not take this poll seriously, but the average does show Trump on track to win, and every single poll up until this point has shown the former president to be ahead. Arizona is also going to be a lean Republican state on our map, and the second flip for the former president. Before we continue, only 10% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And follow me on Twitter for daily political updates, link in the description below. We're now going to fill in many of the states here in the middle of the country that Trump is going to easily win. He was beating Biden by 20-30 points in these states. We don't have new polling with Kamala Harris yet, but it's probably not going to be too different. Donald Trump is going to win the states of Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Kansas, and Oklahoma by at least 12 points, while the 2nd District of Nebraska is currently lean Republican. We also don't have any polling yet between the vice president and the former president in Colorado or New Mexico. In 2020, Colorado was solid blue, while New Mexico was just barely a likely state. It was still a double-digit margin. Joe Biden did perform very well in both of these states, and Kamala Harris is basically guaranteed to do worse, as she is performing worse in basically every other state where we do have polling data.
As a computer science student, technology is essential for my daily tasks and projects. I'm Anissa, and I'll be showing you the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge and how its features help me in my studies and daily life. This model is a 16-inch, but they also have the 14-inch. First, let's talk about the overall look and design. It's so sleek, modern, and lightweight, and honestly, it's so easy to carry around. The display is a dynamic 3K AMOLED 2X touchscreen. It's bright, crisp, and vivid, and what's so cool about this is that it has anti-reflective technology and a vision booster. The screen will still look great even in the bright sunlight. Next, let's talk about the processor and battery life. This Galaxy Book 4 Edge has the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite processor, the fastest, most powerful Snapdragon for Samsung laptops yet. I can run my code and compile my programs super smoothly. This battery life is also amazing. With up to 18 hours, I don't have to worry about finding an outlet, which is perfect for my busy schedule. And the cool thing about all of this is that it has an NPU which is dedicated to running AI locally, making it faster than going into the cloud. One of the coolest features for me was the AI-powered co-creator and Copilot. Copilot was super helpful. All I had to do was send it a quick prompt and it created a study schedule for me. That helped me manage my time so much better. As a non-artist, Co-Creator helped me bring all my visions to life. All you have to do is type in a quick prompt, scribble something, and AI will turn your scribbles into a masterpiece. The live captions is such a game changer. It's perfect if you want to use this for video calls and lectures. This feature turns spoken words into English subtitles in real time, making it so much easier to follow conversations and videos. Phone plug-in with Galaxy AI and Copilot AI is like having your own personal phone assistant. You can call your family, text your friends, set reminders, all from the convenience of your own laptop. With the press of the Copilot key, type simple prompts or use the microphone button and speak to command your phone to do whatever you need. Thanks for checking out the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. If you need help finding the right one for you, you can use the link to connect with an expert like me. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this helpful. Now I'm about to have Copilot plan my day. Bye! Copilot, plan my day.
So Colorado and New Mexico, for now, I'm going to keep them in the likely Democratic categories. It could go down to lean. Hillary Clinton won Colorado by a lean margin in 2016. Kamala Harris isn't too much better of a candidate than Clinton was 8 years ago, so we'll have to see. But for right now, we're going to give the vice president the benefit of the doubt. Texas, though, we do have some data from the Lone Star State. According to the current polling average, Kamala Harris is on track to lose Texas by 10 percentage points. She basically has no chance. I mean, in 2020, Democrats were talking about flipping Texas blue. That is absolutely not going to happen for the rest of the 2020s at the very least, and it'll probably be until the late 2030s, until 2040, when Democrats really actually start to be in a state that's as large as Texas. Trying to flip even just 5% of voters is going to take a very long time. Yes, Democrats did well with Beto O'Rourke in 2018 in that Senate race against Ted Cruz, but in 2020, Democrats were leading in the polls in Texas. They thought they were going to win. They still lost it by 5.6%. They put hundreds of millions of dollars into advertising in the state, and it wasn't enough. And in 2024, nothing Harris does could be enough for Democrats to actually flip Texas blue. So the state is going to be likely Republican. It could very well be solid come election night, but for right now, the polling suggests a likely margin of victory for Donald Trump. Alaska, though, is going to be solid red and Hawaii solid blue. These two states generally aren't competitive, but it will be interesting to see how well Harris can do in the Aloha State, considering the Biden administration's poor handling of the Maui fires. Yes, Kamala Harris is not Joe Biden, but she is very much linked to the administration and to that administration's record. Up in the Midwest, this is where a lot of the hyper-competitive states are going to be. States like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris has to win all 4 of these states if she wants to win the presidency. She basically cannot get to 270 electoral votes without winning every single one of them. And so we're going to start off in Minnesota, a state that Republicans haven't won in 52 years. 1972 was the last time a Republican won this state. That, of course, was Richard Nixon. Looking at the polling today between Harris and Trump, Kamala Harris does lead by 8 percentage points. However, this state can still get competitive. Nobody thought Minnesota was going to be close in 2016, but Trump came within 2 points of actually flipping the state. Hillary Clinton almost lost Minnesota in 2016, and Joe Biden only won the state by 7 points in 2020. There's no way Kamala Harris is going to outperform Biden this year in the state, so this polling is likely to be incorrect, but at least as of right now, it's all the data we have. The state of Minnesota on our map is going to be likely blue. And before we continue, I want to tell you guys about a tool I use every day to keep up with the latest political developments. It's called Ground News, and you can sign up today using my link in the description below. As the media continues to get more biased, Ground News gathers related articles from more than 50,000 sources from around the world in one place, so you can compare how different outlets cover the same topic. Take a look at this story on Trump raising $139 million in July. We can compare headlines and see that left-leaning sources like ABC News is much more blunt in pointing out that Trump fell short of Harris's first week total, while sources on the right like the New York Post uses much more charged language, emphasizing Trump's massive haul and Harris's windfall. With the blind spot feature, you can see exactly what you're missing out on. I use this tool often to make sure that I get access to all viewpoints from across the political spectrum. Go to ground.news/election time right now to give it a try. If you sign up through my link, you'll get 40% off the Vantage Plan, which is what I personally use to get unlimited access to all features. Continuing on our map with Iowa, Donald Trump is on track to winning it by so well. In the last 2 elections here, the state has shifted considerably to the right since he first ran in 2016. There's no doubt he's going to win it. He's also going to win Indiana by a solid margin, 11 electoral votes, the home of Mike Pence, his former vice president, while Illinois is probably going to be somewhere in that likely to solid blue range. For now, we're going to give Harris the benefit of the doubt and place it into the solid blue category. Up in Wisconsin, though, this state is going to be significantly more competitive. Out of all 4 of the upper Midwestern states, it is generally the most conservative. It's the only one currently that has a Republican senator, and Donald Trump has performed the best in Wisconsin when compared to its 3 neighbors. Looking at the polling for 2024, the former president is on track to win by a margin of 0.2%. Yes, it's very close, but many of the polls that have been conducted since Biden dropped out still show Trump in the lead. The only poll that has Harris up is once again that Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. It goes against basically every other poll we've seen over the last few months, and so honestly, it is again just not a poll that we should trust. But as a whole, the polling average does show Trump to be in the lead, and this is very significant considering just how much polling in Wisconsin tends to overestimate Democrats. I mean, look at the 2020 polling. Joe Biden was supposed to win Wisconsin by 6.7%. He won it by less than 1%. That is just how much they overestimated Democratic support for the now president. So on our map, Wisconsin is going to be tilted Republican. It might not be the biggest margin for Trump, but just this alone could cost Kamala Harris the election entirely. Moving on to Michigan, this is another big state Harris has to win if she loses Michigan, which is the most liberal out of the blue wall states, which also includes Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. If she can't win Michigan, she probably can't win the Keystone State or Wisconsin. So looking at the polling right now, in Michigan, Kamala Harris leads by a margin of 2%. And I mean, again, this is just the result of that new Bloomberg poll, which shows Harris up by 11. I mean, that is basically impossible. The last Democrat to win by such a margin was Barack Obama in 2000. Kamala Harris is not Barack Obama by any means. She's not even going to win it by 3-4 percentage points, much less 11. So looking at the polling, I mean, most of it generally has shown Trump to be in a pretty strong position. I mean, we've gotten 4 polls from July. 3 of them show Trump to be ahead or in a tie with the vice president. That one poll is really messing up this average, but for right now, based on what we have, the state of Michigan is going to be lean Democratic, although it is probably going to be significantly more competitive. Pennsylvania is going to be very close as well. This is another crucial state for both candidates. Its 19 electoral votes are particularly valuable for the Harris campaign. And looking at the polling average, Donald Trump leads by 2.7%. Even that new, very skewed Bloomberg poll shows Trump up by 4 points. Basically, every poll from Pennsylvania so far between Trump and Harris has shown the former president up. I mean, there has been quite extensive polling from the state going all the way back to October of last year. Donald Trump is in a good position to win Pennsylvania, and without Pennsylvania, it becomes very, very difficult for Harris in terms of her pathway to the White House. So Pennsylvania is going to be lean Republican. Trump is also on track to win Ohio, and with J.D. Vance, a current senator from the Buckeye State, as his running mate, it's basically inevitable that Trump is going to carry it by at least 12 points. However, according to the polling averages, this is based on just 2 polls, one of them conducted back in March. Trump leads by 11.5%, and on this map, we're going to go strictly by the polling average, so 11.5% is going to place Ohio into the likely Republican category. Moving up to the Northeast now, most of these states are going to be solid blue. Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Biden's home state of Delaware, Maryland, and the District of Columbia are all going to be safe blue states. New Jersey, though, is going to be slightly more competitive. It's going to be likely Democratic. And New York is going to be likely for Vice President Harris as well. We have one poll from the state, and it shows Harris leading by 11% against Donald Trump. This poll conducted just 2 weeks ago, right before Biden dropped out. Honestly, 11 points is a pretty abysmal margin for Democrats, considering that Biden carried the state by 23 points just 4 years ago. So the Empire State on our map is also going to be likely for Kamala Harris. Up in New Hampshire and Maine, we have 2 states that ever so slightly are currently favoring Democrats. Kamala Harris leads by 5.7% in the Granite State, and in Maine, she is ahead by 9. Both of these states were close in 2016. New Hampshire decided by less than half a percentage point. In fact, it was the closest state of the entire election besides Michigan, while the state of Maine went down to a less than 3-point margin. In 2020, though, Biden performed significantly better, winning New Hampshire by 7 and Maine by 9. Today, Kamala Harris is on track to winning New Hampshire by 5.7% and Maine by a margin of 9. We don't have too much polling from these 2 states. Trump can definitely still make them competitive. He is typically underestimated in these regions, but for right now, they're both going to be likely blue. The 1st District of Maine, though, is very liberal. It will be solid for Harris. And the 2nd District, Donald Trump is expected to perform very well and win it by at least 12 points. We're now left with just the southeastern quadrant, most of which is going to be solid for the former president. Trump is on track to easily winning in Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Virginia, though, is going to be slightly more competitive. Kamala Harris leads by 5% according to the only poll between her and Donald Trump. This poll conducted earlier this month. She does lead, but it could get competitive as, of course, Joe Biden lost the polling lead in the state of Virginia before he dropped out. If Biden stayed in the race, Trump would probably flip Virginia this November, a state they haven't won since 2004. And so on our map, Virginia is going to be likely blue. Kamala Harris, if she loses this state, she is basically done. And the fact that she's only up by 5% is not exactly reassuring. Down in North Carolina, we have a state that was decided by just 1 percentage point in 2020. Joe Biden lost it by 1.3%. Donald Trump in 2016, though, carried the Tar Heel state by nearly 4. We're probably going to see a return to this type of margin in 2024, as North Carolina is currently expected to go to Donald Trump by a 5.5% margin against Kamala Harris. It's not expected to be too close. North is generally more competitive than many others, but there's no doubt that Democrats aren't in the best position to flip the state this year. They weren't able to do it in 2020 when basically every poll showed that North Carolina was on track to go to Biden. Even in such a favorable environment, they didn't win. And in 2024, Democrats don't have the luxury of that favorable position anymore. So the Tar Heel state is going to be likely red on our map. Georgia is also going to shift to the right from the last election when Joe Biden actually flipped it by a 0.24% margin. Many people thought that North Carolina was going to flip before Georgia, but that was not the case. Georgia, a state that didn't vote Democrat since 1992 before Biden's victory in 2020. It voted for Biden, but in 2024, it's probably going to vote for Trump again. In fact, the former president carried the Peach State by a likely margin in 2016, and polling for 2024 shows him to be ahead by 3.6%. The only poll that has this race even slightly competitive is this Bloomberg poll that, once again, we really just have to discredit because of how poor the samples have been. 3.6% is the lead for Donald Trump, and he is going to win the state back. 16 electoral votes for the former president. And finally, we have Florida, 30 electoral votes from the Sunshine State. This is a big state for Republicans. It used to be very competitive. It used to be a state that actually decided elections like it did in 2000, but now Florida is a red state. It's a Republican. It voted for its governor and its senator, both of whom were Republicans, in 2022 by solid 16 and 19-point margins. This state is not going to be competitive anytime soon, and honestly, we don't even have that much polling from Florida. Normally, this is one of the most polled states in the country just because of how important it used to be. I mean, in 2012, Florida was the most competitive state in the entire country. In 2020, Trump actually did better in Florida than he did in 2016. And in 2024, we're probably going to see that pattern again. Donald Trump leads by 8.5% in the polling average, and the state is on track to being likely Republican. And so based on current polling averages from every single state, Donald Trump is on track to win the 2024 election.
Thì cái poll ngày hôm nay thì ông Tổng thống Trump ông được 298 cử tri đoàn và Kamala Harris là 240, mà chỉ cần 270 là thắng rồi. Thì mỗi ngày thì có cái poll nó sẽ sai biệt lên xuống chút đỉnh. Nhưng mà hiện tại bây giờ á, là bà Harris là cũng như là tuần trăng mật á, thì bà tăng lên rồi bà sẽ xuống lại rồi xong sẽ sau khi theo mình nghĩ sau khi mà cái đại hội đảng Dân Chủ á, thì bà sẽ tăng lên lại. Đây đại hội đảng Cộng Hòa đã qua rồi. Đó là cái poll ngày hôm nay, và cảm ơn tất cả quý anh chị em đã vào diễn đàn để lắng nghe trong cái poll ngày hôm nay. Hàng ngày mình sẽ làm một cái tổng kết cho quý vị xem cho có cái sự thay đổi cái poll hàng ngày. Cảm ơn tất cả quý anh chị em.